I died on my 35th birthday, choking on a piece of cake my mother-in-law made. She stood over me, watching, while my husband called the ambulance. Too late. Always too late when it came to his family protecting me. The last thing I saw was her face, not my mother-in-law's, but hers. My sister-in-law, Victoria. She was standing in the doorway of the dining room, one hand on the frame, watching me convulse on the floor. And she was smiling. Not a big smile. Not obvious enough for anyone else to notice. Just a small curve at the corner of her mouth. Satisfaction. She'd won. After everything, after 13 years of systematically destroying my life, she'd won. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was staring at a ceiling I hadn't seen in over a decade. Water-stained acoustic tiles, a crack running from the light fixture to the corner. My old apartment, the one I'd shared with 3 roommates while finishing my master's degree. I sat up so fast my head spun. My hands, young hands, smooth hands, hands without the stress-induced eczema I'd developed in my late 20s, gripped the edge of a mattress on the floor. No bed frame. I couldn't afford a bed frame when I was 22. My phone was charging on the floor next to me, an iPhone 4. I hadn't seen one of those in years. With shaking hands, I grabbed it and pressed the home button. The date made my heart stop. September 3rd, 2011. 13 years. I'd gone back 13 years. I stood up, stumbled to the bathroom I shared with my roommates, and stared at myself in the mirror. 22 years old. No gray hairs, no permanent stress lines between my eyebrows, no shadows under my eyes from working 70-hour weeks trying to dig myself out of debt. I looked young, hopeful, naive. I looked like I had before Victoria destroyed me. My hands were still shaking as I gripped the edge of the sink. This couldn't be real. Time travel wasn't real. Rebirth wasn't real. I'd read enough web novels to know the tropes, but this was real life. Real life didn't work like this. Except I was here, in my old apartment, in my old body, with all my memories intact. 13 years of memories. Every moment of pain, every betrayal, every dollar stolen, every lie told, every family member who'd chosen Victoria over me, every sleepless night spent trying to figure out how to survive, and the lawsuit, God, the lawsuit. I walked back to my room on autopilot and sat down on my mattress. My laptop was on the floor, a clunky Dell that overheated if you ran too many programs. I opened it and waited for it to boot up. While it loaded, I opened my banking app on my phone. $3,247. My pathetic savings from working 2 jobs while finishing my master's degree in public health. In my previous life, this money would be gone in 6 months. Stolen. Every last cent, plus the $50,000 settlement from my car accident, plus my grandmother's inheritance of $75,000. All of it, taken by Victoria Chen. My laptop finally loaded. I opened Facebook. I hadn't used Facebook in years in my first life, had deleted it after the divorce, and searched for her name. There she was, Victoria Chen. Her profile picture was her at some charity event wearing a red dress, champagne glass in hand. Aspiring entrepreneur, her bio said, building something beautiful. In this timeline, she hadn't started her business yet. She hadn't befriended me yet, hadn't convinced me to invest, hadn't forged my signature on loan documents that left me drowning in debt while she siphoned everything into offshore accounts. I scrolled through her posts, inspirational quotes about success, photos of brunches and shopping trips, check-ins at expensive restaurants, all funded by her parents I knew. The Chen family had money, not wealthy but comfortable, enough to spoil their youngest daughter, enough to bail her out when her schemes failed, enough to pressure me into dropping a lawsuit that would have given me justice. The lawsuit. In my first life, I'd finally scraped together enough evidence when I was 28. 6 years of financial abuse meticulously documented. Bank statements showing systematic transfers, forged documents, witness testimony from her ex-business partner who she'd screwed over the same way she'd screwed me. I'd filed the civil suit. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. The case was solid. My lawyer had said we'd win. Then the family descended. I could still hear Marcus's mother, her voice dripping with disappointment. "You'd destroy this family over money? Victoria made mistakes, but she's family. We don't air our dirty laundry in public. What will people think?" Marcus's father, cold and cutting. "I'm very disappointed in you. I thought you were better than this. I thought you understood what family means." Marcus himself, the man I'd loved, the man I'd married. "Can't you just let it go? She'll pay you back eventually. This lawsuit will kill my mother. She has a heart condition. Do you want her death on your conscience?" Every dinner became an intervention. Every family gathering, an ambush. Marcus's grandmother cried and said I was breaking her heart. His aunts called me vindictive and gold-digging. His cousins stopped inviting me to events. And Victoria? She played the part perfectly, tears streaming down her face. Apologies that sounded sincere. Promises she never intended to keep. "I made bad investments trying to help the family," she'd said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I was trying to build something that would benefit all of us. I never meant for it to go wrong. Please, I'll make it right. I'll pay you back. I just need time." The pressure was relentless. Every day, someone from the family called or texted or emailed. Every day, they told me I was destroying the family, that I was being unreasonable, that I was choosing money over love. After 3 months, I broke. I couldn't handle it anymore. The constant guilt, the isolation, the sense that I was the villain in their story. I dropped the lawsuit. Victoria never paid back a cent, not $1. The statute of limitations for civil fraud in our state was 7 years. By the time it ran out, I was so deep in debt from the loans she'd taken out in my name that I'd filed for bankruptcy. My credit was destroyed. My marriage was a hollow shell of arguments and resentment. And Victoria? She'd moved to Singapore, living off my money, posting photos of her luxury lifestyle on Instagram. The family never apologized. They never acknowledged what she'd done. They acted like I should be grateful I'd done the right thing by dropping the lawsuit, like I should be proud I'd chosen family over money. But it was never about the money. It was about justice. It was about consequences. It was about someone finally telling Victoria that she couldn't steal and lie and destroy people without facing repercussions. I'd tried to be that someone, and I'd failed. I'd spent the next 7 years working myself to death trying to recover. Literally, 70-hour weeks at 2 jobs, no vacation, no rest, no life. Just work and debt and exhaustion. And then, on my 35th birthday, I choked on cake and died. But now I was back. Now I was 22, and the statute of limitations had reset. I spent the first 3 days in a daze trying to process. I called in sick to both my jobs, waitressing at a diner and data entry for a medical billing company. I told my roommates I had the flu. I stayed in my room, laptop open, reconstructing everything I could remember. Because that was the gift of rebirth, wasn't it? I remembered everything, every conversation, every manipulation, every crime. The exact dates, the exact amounts, the exact methods Victoria had used. I opened a new document and began to type. Timeline: Victoria Chen fraud, December 2011. Victoria meets Marcus. At charity gala. Begins cultivating relationship with Chen family. January 2012. Victoria randomly encounters me at coffee shop. Suggests we get together sometime. February-May 2012. Victoria systematically befriends me. Coffee dates, shopping trips, girls' nights. Becomes my best friend. June 2012. Marcus proposes. Victoria is thrilled, says she's so happy her favorite people are getting together. October 2013. Wedding. Victoria is maid of honor. November 2013. Victoria begins researching business opportunities. Asks casual questions about my finances. January 2014. Car accident. I receive $50,000 insurance settlement. February 2014. Victoria pitches business investment opportunity. I invest $30,000. March, July 2014. Small transfers from business account to Victoria's personal account. $500 to $1,000 at a time. Totals approximately $8,000. August 2014. Grandmother dies. I inherit $75,000. September 2014. Victoria claims business emergency. I loan her $50,000. October 2014. March 2015. Systematic theft from joint business account totals approximately $35,000. March 2015, first forged signature on loan application in my name, $40,000 business loan. June 2015, second forged loan, $35,000. August 2015, third forged loan, $14,000. Total theft, $142,000 in direct theft, $89,000 in fraudulent loans I'm liable for. I stared at the timeline. In my first life, I hadn't discovered the full extent of the theft until late 2015. By then, Victoria had already moved most of the money offshore. She'd been careful, smart. She'd known exactly what she was doing. And when I'd confronted her, she'd cried and apologized and promised to make it right. She'd strung me along for another 6 months before I'd finally hired a lawyer. By the time the lawsuit was filed, the Chen family had already closed ranks around her. But this time would be different. This time, I knew exactly what was coming. I could prepare. I could document everything from the very beginning. I could build an airtight case that no amount of family pressure could make me drop, because this time, I wouldn't be fighting alone. This time, I'd have time to find the right lawyer, time to gather evidence, time to steel myself for the family's assault. Most importantly, this time, I knew that dropping the lawsuit would accomplish nothing. Victoria wouldn't pay me back. The family wouldn't appreciate my sacrifice. I'd just end up broken, exactly like before. I closed my laptop and looked around my small room. Water-stained ceiling, mattress on the floor, my entire wardrobe in a rolling clothes rack because there was no closet. In my first life, I'd been so eager to escape this place, so eager to marry Marcus and move into the nice apartment his parents helped us afford, so eager to be part of a family again after losing mine. That eagerness had made me vulnerable. It had made me trust Victoria. It had made me ignore red flags. Not this time. This time, I'd stay in this shitty apartment as long as I needed to. I'd keep my savings protected. I'd be careful, methodical, and patient. Because I had something Victoria didn't know about. Foreknowledge. I knew every move she'd make before she made it. I knew every lie before she told it. I knew every crime before she committed it. And I was going to use that knowledge to destroy her. I opened my laptop again and created a new email account. Something secure that Victoria would never find. Then I started a paper trail. I took screenshots of my current bank statements. I photographed my financial documents. I created a folder structure to organize everything chronologically. Then I researched lawyers. In my first life, I'd hired the first attorney I could afford, a solo practitioner who did decent work but was overworked and underpaid. She'd built a solid case, but she didn't have the resources to fight the Chen family's high-powered attorney. This time, I needed someone better, someone with resources, someone ruthless. I found her in less than an hour. Catherine Morrison, senior partner at Morrison & Clark. Specialization, white-collar crime and civil fraud. Success rate, 94%. Known for taking down wealthy defendants who thought they were untouchable. She was expensive, very expensive, but I had 13 years of knowledge about the stock market, about cryptocurrency, about real estate bubbles. I could make money. I could afford her. More importantly, I'd need her because Victoria wasn't going down without a fight. And when the Chen family got involved, I'd need someone who couldn't be intimidated. I bookmarked Catherine's firm's website and closed my laptop. Then I lay back on my mattress and stared at the water-stained ceiling. December was 3 months away. That's when Victoria would meet Marcus. That's when the whole nightmare would begin again. I had 3 months to prepare. I spent them wisely. First, I quit the data entry job. It paid slightly better. Then waitressing, but took up time I needed for more important things. I picked up extra shifts at the diner instead. The tips were better, and I could study between rushes. Second, I opened a safe deposit box at a bank across town. I started keeping copies of all my important documents there. Financial records, tax returns, everything Victoria would eventually try to steal or forge. Third, I started investing. Small amounts at first. I couldn't risk arousing suspicion by suddenly having too much money. But I remembered which stocks would boom, which tech companies would explode, which investments would pay off. Bitcoin was $2 in September 2011. I bought $500 worth. It would be worth $10,000 by late 2013. I'd sell then and reinvest. Apple stock was undervalued. I bought shares. I was careful. I didn't make huge bets. I just made smart ones. The kind of bets a lucky graduate student might make. Fourth, I researched Victoria's other victims. In my first life, I'd discovered their biasa were others only during the lawsuit when my attorney found them. This time, I reached out early. There was James Chen, no relation to the family. Victoria had run the same business scam on him in 2010. He'd lost $85,000 and hadn't sued because he was embarrassed. I found him on LinkedIn and sent a careful message saying I was researching business fraud for my thesis and had come across some concerning patterns. Would he be willing to talk? He agreed to meet for coffee. James was in his 40s, tired-looking, defeated. He nursed his coffee and told me about Victoria. She was so convincing, he said. The business plan looked legitimate. The contracts looked real. She had references. I called them. They all said great things. I didn't know they were her friends lying for her. How much did you invest? I asked, even though I knew. 85,000? My entire retirement savings. When the business failed, she said she was devastated. She cried. She said she'd pay me back. Then she disappeared. Did you sue? He shook his head. I consulted a lawyer, but by the time I gathered evidence, she'd moved everything offshore. The lawyer said we could win the case, but collecting the judgment would be nearly impossible. It would cost me more in legal fees than I'd recover. What if there were other victims? I asked carefully. What if we could show a pattern of fraud? His eyes sharpened. Are there others? I think so. I'm still researching. We exchanged information. I promised to keep in touch. Next was Sarah Michaels. Victoria had scammed her out of $42,000 in 2009 with a fake real estate investment scheme. Sarah was in her 50s, a widow who'd been trying to invest her late husband's life insurance payout. She was more bitter than James. I reported her to the police, she told me over the phone. They said it was a civil matter. I contacted a lawyer. He said the same thing. We could sue, but she'd hidden the money. There was nothing to recover. Would you testify if there was a case against her? I asked. In a heartbeat. That woman is a predator. She targets people who are vulnerable, people who trust too easily. People like me, I thought. By the time December rolled around, I had a file on Victoria that would have made a prosecutor weep with joy. 2 previous victims willing to testify, evidence of a pattern, documentation of her methods. Now I just had to let her do it all again. The charity gala was December 10th, 2011. Marcus had invited me a week earlier. It's for my family's foundation, he'd said. Pediatric cancer research. It's formal, but I'd love for you to come. I want you to meet my parents. I'd met Marcus 3 months earlier at a friend's party. He was handsome, charming, successful. A junior partner at a consulting firm from a good family. Exactly the kind of man I'd thought I wanted. In my first life, I'd been thrilled he'd invited me to the gala. It had felt like a big step, meeting the family, being introduced to his world. This time, I felt nothing but dread, because I knew what came next. I wore the same dress I'd worn before, a simple navy sheath I'd bought on sale at Nordstrom Rack. It was elegant enough for the event, but not so fancy that I'd seem like I was trying too hard. I'd learned that lesson in my first life when Victoria had made a comment about how eager I seemed. The gala was at the Ritz-Carlton, a ballroom full of wealthy donors writing checks for children's cancer research while drinking champagne and eating canapes that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Marcus's parents were gracious but evaluating. His mother, Diane, looked me up and down with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. So, you're the graduate student Marcus has been seeing. How ambitious of you. His father, Robert, shook my hand with a grip that was just slightly too firm. Marcus tells us you're studying public health. That's a challenging field. Not very lucrative, though. I smiled and said all the right things. I'd had years to practice being what the Chen family wanted. Then she arrived. Victoria Chen, 24 years old, wearing a red dress that hugged her curves and made every man in the room look twice. She moved through the crowd like she owned it, air-kissing cheeks and laughing at jokes. I watched her work the room. She was good. Really good. She'd find someone important, charm them just enough to be memorable, then move on before she seemed desperate. She was collecting business cards and connections. I knew the exact moment she spotted Marcus. Her eyes locked on him and I saw the calculation. Not attraction. Calculation. Marcus Chen, successful consultant from a wealthy family, clearly here with a girlfriend who looked uncertain and out of place. A mark. She approached him while I was getting us drinks. I watched from the bar as she introduced herself. Marcus Chen, I've heard so much about your family's foundation work. He smiled, flattered. You have? From who? Oh, several people. You're building quite a reputation in the philanthropic community. Lies, all lies, but Marcus ate it up. I walked back over with our drinks. Here you go. Victoria's eyes slid to me. Assessment, threat level, low. You must be the girlfriend, she said, extending her hand. I'm Victoria. Marcus has told me absolutely nothing about you, which means I need to interrogate you immediately. I shook her hand and smiled. Her grip was firm, confident. The grip of someone who took what she wanted, that's it. He's very private about his personal life, I said. Well, that changes tonight. Come on, let's get champagne and you can tell me everything. And so it began. Again, Victoria was magnetic. Within an hour, she'd charmed everyone at our table. She had stories about traveling through Southeast Asia, about volunteering at orphanages, about her plans to start a business that would give back to the South community. All lies. I knew they were lies. But she told them so well that even I, knowing what I knew, could feel the pull of her charisma. Marcus's parents loved her immediately. Diane actually laughed at Victoria's jokes, something she'd never done with me. Robert engaged her in a discussion about social entrepreneurship that lasted 20 minutes. When the gala ended, Victoria hugged me like we were old friends. We should get coffee sometime, she said. I need more women friends in this city. All my college friends moved away. I'd like that, I lied. Marcus was glowing on the drive home. She's great, isn't she, Victoria? So smart and accomplished, and she's only 24. Imagine what she'll do with her life. I imagined exactly what she'd do. She'd steal $142,000 from me and destroy my life. But I smiled and said, she seems wonderful. 3 days later, Victoria texted me. Coffee this week? I'm dying to hear more about your research. Public health is so important. We met at a Starbucks near campus. She ordered a complicated drink and insisted on paying. My treat. I'm just so excited to make a new friend. She asked me about my thesis, about my family, about how I'd met Marcus. She was warm, interested, genuine. Or she seemed genuine. That was her gift. She could make you feel like you were the most important person in the world, like she truly cared about you. I told her about my research on health disparities in underserved communities. I told her my parents had died when I was 8 and my grandmother had raised me. I told her Marcus and I had met at a mutual friend's party. She listened with perfect attention, asking follow-up questions, making empathetic noises. You're so strong, she said. Losing your parents so young and still accomplishing so much. I admire that. I felt a flicker of the warmth I'd felt in my first life. The sense of being seen, of mattering. Then I remembered her standing over me while I choked to death, smiling. The warmth died, but I smiled back and said, thank you, that means a lot. We started meeting regularly, coffee once a week, then twice a week, then girls' nights out, shopping trips, brunches. Victoria introduced me to her world, expensive restaurants I couldn't afford where she always paid, claiming she had a trust fund from her grandparents. Designer sample sales where she'd buy me things as presents. Networking events where she'd introduce me to people as my brilliant friend who's going to change the world with her research. All of it was grooming, building trust, making me dependent on her friendship, making me feel special. I documented everything, every text message, saved and backed up, every meal, photographed and noted. I was building a timeline of our relationship. Evidence that this was calculated, not spontaneous friendship. Meanwhile, I watched my investments grow. Bitcoin hit $5 in early 2012. My $500 was now worth $1,050. I didn't sell. It would go higher. My Apple stock split. I reinvested the gains. I was careful. I didn't tell Victoria or Marcus about my investments. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank and routed everything through there. In March 2012, I had a conversation with Victoria that I remembered word for word from my first life. We were at brunch, mimosas in hand, when she leaned forward, conspiratorialist. Can I tell you a secret? Of course. I'm thinking of starting a business. Something in consulting, helping small businesses optimize their operations. I have so many ideas, but I don't know where to start. That sounds exciting. It is. I've been researching market opportunities, building a business plan. I think there's real potential. She paused, then smiled. Would you be interested in hearing about it? I value your opinion. In my first life, I'd been flattered. This beautiful, sophisticated woman wanted my opinion. Of course, I'd said yes. This time, I knew it was the first step in her con, but I had to play along. I'd love to hear about it, I said. She spent the next hour pitching her business idea. It was vague enough to sound plausible, but detailed enough to seem real. Target market analysis, competitive positioning, revenue projections, all fiction, but convincing fiction. I'm not asking for anything, she said at the end. I just wanted to share with someone I trust. You're so smart. If you think it's a dumb idea, I want to know. It sounds promising, I said carefully. But starting a business is risky. You'd need significant capital. I know, that's the scary part. But I think it could really work. I watched her face. She was so good. The perfect mix of enthusiasm and uncertainty. Like she genuinely wanted feedback, not investment. But I knew better. This was the setup. Over the next few months, she'd gradually plant the idea of me investing. She'd make it seem like my idea, like I was helping a friend achieve her dreams. I smiled and sipped my mimosa and thought about how satisfying it would be to watch her face when she realized I'd known all along. Marcus proposed in June 2012, exactly like before. A romantic dinner at an expensive restaurant, a ring his mother had helped him pick out, a speech about how I was the woman he wanted to spend his life with. I said yes. I had to. Breaking up with him now would change too many variables. Victoria needed to think I was the same naive woman from the first timeline. Besides, the marriage wouldn't last. I already knew that. I'd divorce him after the trial, just like before. But this time, I wouldn't be heartbroken. Victoria cried when we told her the news. I'm so happy for you both. My two favorite people getting married. She threw me an engagement party. She helped me pick out wedding dresses. She was the perfect friend, all while planning how to steal from me. The wedding was set for October 2013. A year-and-a-half engagement. Marcus's mother insisted we needed time to plan properly. I spent that time preparing. I researched forensic accountants. I read everything I could about white-collar crime prosecution. I studied the legal elements of fraud, forgery, and identity theft. I memorized statute of limitations laws. 7 years from the last criminal act, that was my window. I also built my financial cushion. Bitcoin hit $13 in late 2012. I sold half my holdings, $3,250 in profit. I reinvested some in stocks I knew would boom. I saved the rest in my secret account. By the wedding, I had almost $20,000 in investments and savings that Victoria knew nothing about. The wedding itself was beautiful. Marcus's family spared no expense. They were paying, after all. 200 guests, an elegant ballroom, a band, an open bar. Victoria was my maid of honor. She wore a burgundy dress and gave a toast that made everyone cry. I've known these two for years now, she said, smiling at Marcus and me, and I can honestly say I've never seen two people more perfect for each other. They bring out the best in each other. They support each other's dreams. They're building something beautiful together. To Marcus and Claire, may your love last forever. The guests applauded. Marcus squeezed my hand. I smiled. And I thought, in 7 years, I'll be divorced from your brother and you'll be in prison. The honeymoon was in Bali, exactly like before. 2 weeks of beaches and temples and expensive hotels Marcus's parents paid for as a wedding gift. Before we left, I gave Victoria a key to our apartment. Just in case of emergencies, I said, can you check on our plants? Of course, she said, hugging me. Have an amazing time. I'd also installed a hidden camera in our bedroom closet, angled toward the desk where I kept my financial documents. On day 3 of the honeymoon, I checked the camera feed remotely. There was Victoria in our apartment photographing every document in my desk: bank statements, tax returns, investment account information, everything. She was meticulous. She'd put each document back exactly where she'd found it. If I hadn't known to look for this, I never would have noticed. I downloaded the video file and stored it in 3 separate cloud accounts. Evidence. When we returned from the honeymoon, I acted like nothing was wrong. I thanked Victoria for watching the plants. I showed her photos from the trip. I gushed about how wonderful everything had been. "I'm so happy for you," she said, hugging me. I hugged her back and thought about discovery law, about how this video would be Exhibit A in my lawsuit. The car accident happened in January 2014, exactly like before. I was driving home from campus, stopped at a red light when a drunk driver slammed into me from behind going 50 miles an hour. The impact was devastating. I remember the crunch of metal, the explosion of the airbag, the searing pain in my chest and hips. Then sirens, paramedics, the hospital, broken ribs, fractured pelvis, severe whiplash, months of physical therapy. It was just as painful the second time as it had been the first. Rebirth hadn't given me immunity to suffering. I still hurt. I still cried from the pain. I still spent weeks unable to walk without assistance. But I had one advantage. I knew I'd recover. In my first life, I'd worried I'd be disabled forever. This time, I knew I'd heal completely. The insurance settlement was $50,000. The drunk driver's policy paid out after 3 months of negotiation. Victoria visited me every day while I was recovering. She brought me books and magazines. She helped me with exercises. She made me laugh when I felt hopeless. "You're so strong," she said over and over. "I don't know how you're staying so positive." "I have great friends," I told her. She smiled. Always. I knew what was coming next. 2 weeks after I received the settlement, Victoria came over for dinner. She seemed nervous, uncharacteristically quiet. "Is everything okay?" Marcus asked. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you both about something." Here it was, the pitch. She took a deep breath. "I'm finally doing it. I'm starting my business. The consulting firm I've been dreaming about for years." "That's wonderful," Marcus said. "Congratulations," I added. "Thank you. I'm terrified but excited. I've been building the business plan for 2 years now. I have clients lined up. I've found office space. I just need startup capital." She looked at me. "I know this is a huge ask. And please feel free to say no. But I was wondering if you'd consider investing, being a partner, building this together." "How much would you need?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "30,000 would get us started. You'd own 30% of the company. We'd split profits proportionally. I have projections showing we'd be profitable within a year." She pulled out a folder. Business plan, financial projections, client testimonials. It all looked legitimate. Because Victoria was good at this. "I wouldn't ask anyone else," she said, her eyes wide and sincere. "But you're not just my best friend. You're family. And I trust you. This is going to change our lives." In my first life, I'd said yes immediately. I'd been so touched that she thought of me, that she wanted to build something together. This time, I hesitated. "I don't know, Victoria. That's a lot of money." Her face fell. "I understand. It is a lot. I shouldn't have asked." "No, it's not that. Can I think about it?" "Of course. Take all the time you need." She stood up. "I should go. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot." "Wait," I said, catching her hand. She looked at me hopefully. "Let me talk to Marcus. Let me look at the business plan more carefully. But I think I want to do this." She hugged me, tears in her eyes. Thank you so much. You won't regret this, but I knew I would, because that was the plan. I had to let her steal from me. I had to let her commit every crime, document everything. everything, build an airtight case. I invested $25,000, slightly less than before. I wanted to keep some flexibility. She signed partnership agreements. She signed a promissory note for the funds. Everything looked official. I documented every signature. I had her sign multiple copies. I photographed everything. I stored the originals in my safe deposit box. Then I hired a private investigator. His name was Dale Reston, former FBI agent turned private eye. He was expensive, but I could afford it now. My investments had grown to almost $50,000. I need you to track where money goes, I told him. My business partner's spending, bank transfers, everything. You think she's stealing from you? I know she is. I just need proof. Dale was thorough. Within a month, he'd identified the offshore account. He'd documented the transfers. He'd photographed Victoria's luxury purchases, designer bags, expensive jewelry, first-class flights, all charged to the business account. He gave me weekly reports. I saved everything. The business launched in March 2014. For 6 months, everything looked legitimate. Victoria sent me monthly reports, profit statements, checks for my distribution. I deposited the checks and photographed every statement. I noted discrepancies. I tracked every lie. By September 2014, Dale had documented $8,000 in fraudulent transfers. Then my grandmother died. The grief was just as sharp the second time. Maybe sharper because I knew it was coming and couldn't stop it. Heart attack, sudden. She was gone before the paramedics arrived. I flew home for the funeral. Marcus came with me. Victoria sent flowers and a card that said, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Your grandmother was an amazing woman." She'd never met my grandmother. The inheritance was $75,000, everything my grandmother had saved her entire life. The house she'd owned free and clear, sold and converted to cash, her life insurance, her retirement accounts. It was all she had to give me, and she'd left every penny. I put it in my secret account, the one Victoria didn't know about. 3 weeks later, Victoria came to me in tears. She was at my apartment, mascara running down her face, sobbing. "What's wrong?" I asked, even though I knew. "The business is in trouble. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to burden you, especially after your grandmother, but I don't know what to do." What happened? Our biggest client pulled out. They were supposed to be 40% of our revenue. Without them, we can't make payroll. We can't pay rent. We're going to lose everything unless I can secure emergency funding. How much do you need? $50,000. I know it's a lot. I'll sign a promissory note. I'll give you interest, whatever you need, but please, I can't let this fail. It's both our futures. She grabbed my hands. I know you just got your inheritance. I know this is terrible timing, but I swear to you, I'll pay it back. We have another client signing next month. As soon as that comes through, you'll get every penny back. In my first life, I'd given her the entire inheritance. All $75,000. Because she was my best friend. Because I trusted her. This time, I hesitated. Victoria, that's my inheritance. That's all I have from my grandmother. I know. And I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. But we're partners. Your investment is at risk too. If the business fails, we both lose everything. She was manipulating me. I could see it clearly now. The tears, the desperation, the appeal to our partnership, but I had to let her do it. 50,000, I said slowly. And you'll sign a promissory note? Yes, absolutely, whatever you need. I thought about it for 3 days. Then I agreed. I gave her $50,000 from my secret account. I transferred it to one of my regular accounts first, so it would look like it came from the inheritance. She signed a promissory note. She signed a contract promising to pay it back with 5% interest within 6 months. I had her signatures notarized. I made 3 copies. I stored them in my safe deposit box. Then I watched her deposit the money and immediately transfer $45,000 to her offshore account. Dale documented everything. The theft became systematic over the next year. Victoria would transfer money from our business account to her personal account in small amounts. $500 here, $1,000 there. Never enough to be immediately obvious, but it added up. Dale tracked every transfer. I documented every discrepancy between her reports and reality. By March 2015, she'd stolen approximately $35,000 through these transfers. Then came the forgery. I got an alert on my credit monitoring service. A new loan had been opened in my name. $40,000. Business loan from a commercial lender. I pulled the application. There was my signature. Except it wasn't my signature. It was close. Victoria had practiced, but it wasn't quite right. I photographed the document. I compared it to my real signature. I had a handwriting expert analyze it. This is a forgery, the expert confirmed. The stroke patterns are wrong. The pressure is inconsistent. Someone copied your signature but didn't replicate your natural writing. I paid him $500 for a written report. I stored it in my safe deposit box. I didn't confront Victoria. I let her think she'd gotten away with it. 2 months later, another loan, $35,000, then a third, $14,000. Each time I documented everything. Each time I had the signatures analyzed. Each time I gathered proof. By September 2015, Victoria had stolen or fraudulently obtained $142,000 from me. Exactly like before. But this time, I had evidence. Mountains of it. Video of her photographing my documents. Private investigator reports tracking the offshore transfers. Handwriting analysis proving forgery. Bank statements. Contracts. Promissory notes. Everything. And this time, I had the best lawyer in the state on retainer. I called Catherine Morrison's office and made an appointment. Her office was on the 40th floor of a downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern art on the walls, expensive furniture. Catherine herself was in her 50s, perfectly dressed in a charcoal suit with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I sat across from her desk and laid out 3 banker's boxes full of evidence. "This is everything," I said. Bank statements, contracts, videos, private investigator reports, handwriting analysis, a complete timeline of every fraudulent act committed by Victoria Chen over the last 18 months. Catherine opened the first box and started reading. She didn't speak for 20 minutes, just read, occasionally making notes. Finally, she looked up. "This is one of the most thoroughly documented fraud cases I've ever seen," she said. "How long have you been preparing this?" "A long time." "Who helped you?" "No one. I did it myself." Her eyebrows rose. "You're not a lawyer." "No, but I knew I'd need overwhelming evidence. I knew she'd lie. I knew her family would protect her. So I documented everything." "Smart." She leaned back in her chair. "You're suing your sister-in-law. Your husband's family will get involved. This will get ugly. Are you ready for that?" "I am." "They'll try to pressure you to drop the case. They'll call you vindictive, gold-digging. They'll make you the villain." "I know." "And you're still sure you want to do this?" I thought about my first life. The pressure, the guilt, the isolation, the moment I broke and dropped the lawsuit. I thought about Victoria's smile as I choked to death. I looked Catherine in the eye. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just been let off the leash, and then, let's destroy her. We spent the next week refining the case. Catherine had her associates review every document. She had her investigators verify Dale's findings. She had her forensic accountant analyze the financial records. "This is bulletproof," she told me. "We have video evidence of her stealing your personal information. We have proof she forged your signature, not just my opinion, but expert analysis. We have documentation of systematic theft over 18 months. We have the offshore accounts. This isn't just fraud. This is premeditated, calculated criminal activity." Will we win? In civil court, absolutely. I'd bet my career on it. Criminal charges are up to the DA, but I'll recommend prosecution. With this evidence, they'd be idiots not to file charges. How much can we get? Full restitution of $142,000. Punitive damages, I'll ask for triple, so $426,000. Legal fees. We're looking at over $600,000 total. She doesn't have that kind of money. No, but she has assets. We'll seize everything. Her car, her condo, her jewelry. We'll garnish her wages for the rest of her life if we have to. She'll never recover from this financially. Good, I thought. Let her spend the rest of her life drowning in debt. just like she made me do in my first life. When do we file? I asked. October 1st. I wanted to time it for maximum impact. We'll serve her at work. We'll file a press release. We'll make sure this is public. Women like Victoria rely on their victims staying quiet. We're going to make noise. October 1st, 2015, was a Thursday. I remember because I took the day off work. I wanted to be ready when Marcus found out. Victoria was served at 10:47 a.m. Catherine had hired a process server who'd been instructed to serve her in front of her coworkers. I got a text from the server at 10:50. Delivered. She's crying. Good. Marcus called at 11:15. I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 11:30, again at noon. At 12:45, he started texting. Call me. We need to talk. What the fuck did you do? Call me now. I turned off my phone and waited. He came home at 6 p.m. I'd expected him earlier, but Catherine had advised me that he'd probably spend the day with his family, strategizing. I was sitting on the couch when he walked in. His face was red, his jaw clenched. What the fuck? Hello to you too. You sued my sister. I sued a woman who stole $142,000 from me and forged my signature on loan documents. The fact that she's your sister is incidental. This is a family matter. You don't sue family. I stood up. She's not my family, Marcus. She's your family, and she's a criminal who destroyed my financial life. She made mistakes. She was trying to save her business. She doesn't have a business. She never did. It's always a scam. She stole from me, and according to my lawyer, she stole from at least 3 other people using the exact same methods. I don't believe you. I have video of her breaking into our apartment and photographing my financial documents. His face went white. What? I have bank records showing systematic transfers to offshore accounts. I have handwriting analysis proving she forged my signature. I have 18 months of evidence. She's guilty, Marcus, and deep down you know it. My mother, your mother will survive. This isn't about her. She has a heart condition. So does Victoria need to be above the law because your mother has a heart condition? That doesn't make sense. He stepped closer. Drop the lawsuit. No. Your family enabled a criminal. That's not my problem. If you don't drop this, we're done. There it was, the ultimatum. Choose him or choose justice. In my first life, this moment had broken me. I'd loved him so much. The thought of losing him had been unbearable. This time, I felt nothing but relief. Then, I guess we're done, I said calmly. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. You'd choose money over our marriage? I'd choose self-respect over being married to a man who thinks I should let his sister steal from me without consequences. It's not about, yes it is. It's exactly about that. Your sister committed crimes against me. Multiple crimes. And instead of being horrified by what she did, instead of apologizing, instead of supporting me, you're demanding I drop the lawsuit so your family doesn't look bad? You're choosing her over me. She's my sister. And I'm your wife. Or I was. Apparently that doesn't mean much. His hands clenched into fists. For a second, I thought he might hit me. Then he turned and punched the wall instead. Pack your shit and get out, he said without looking at me. Already done. My bags are in the bedroom. I'd packed that morning before the lawsuit was even filed. Catherine had advised keeping physical distance once things got ugly. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed my 2 suitcases, and walked back to the living room. Marcus was standing by the window, his back to me. I'll have a lawyer contact you about the divorce, I said. He didn't respond. I left and never looked back. I checked into a hotel near Catherine's office. She'd recommended staying somewhere Victoria and the family didn't know about. They might try to harass you, better to be somewhere safe. The family campaign started within hours. Diane called first. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail that was 7 minutes long. Claire, this is unacceptable. How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you, welcomed you into our family, treated you like a daughter, This is how you repay us? Victoria made mistakes, yes, but she's trying to fix them. She's family. We don't air our dirty laundry in public. Do you know what people will think? Do you know what this will do to our reputation? I'm begging you, drop this lawsuit. Be the bigger person. We'll work something out privately, but this public humiliation is cruel and unnecessary. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Catherine with the subject line, Harassment, Exhibit A. Robert emailed me, Claire, I am deeply disappointed in your behavior. The Chen family has always valued loyalty, discretion, and family unity. Your decision to pursue this lawsuit demonstrates that you possess none of these qualities. Victoria made poor business decisions. She's admitted as much. But she's willing to work out a payment plan to reimburse you for your investment. There is no need for public legal action that will damage this family's reputation. I urge you to reconsider. If you proceed with this vendetta, you will regret it. Robert, I forwarded it to Catherine with the note, Harassment, Exhibit B. Also note threat in final line. Marcus's grandmother called. She was crying. Sweetheart, please, I don't understand what's happening. Marcus won't explain, but I know you're a good girl. Whatever Victoria did, I'm sure it was a misunderstanding. Can't you work this out? Family is forever. Money comes and goes. Don't let money destroy something beautiful. She stole my grandmother's inheritance, I said quietly. What? My grandmother, the woman who raised me after my parents died, left me $75,000. That was everything she had. Victoria lied to me, said her business was in trouble, and I gave her $50,000 of it. She promised to pay me back. She never did. She put it in an offshore account and spent it on designer clothes and vacations. Silence on the line. I'm sure there's an explanation. There is. She's a thief. And I'm not dropping the lawsuit. Goodbye. I hung up. The calls kept coming. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all saying the same thing. Drop it. Be reasonable. Don't destroy the family. Think of Marcus. Think of Diane's heart. Think of Victoria's future. No one said what Victoria did was wrong. No one said, you deserve justice. No one said, we're sorry she hurt you. Blocked every number. I blocked their emails. I blocked them on social media. And I focused on the case. The discovery process was fascinating. Catherine subpoenaed Victoria's bank records. She deposed Victoria's ex-business partners, the ones I'd found who she'd scammed before me. James Chen agreed to testify. If this helps take her down, I'm in. Sarah Michaels agreed too. I want that woman in prison. Catherine found a third victim I hadn't known about. Rebecca Torres scammed out of $67,000 in 2008. I thought I was the only one, Rebecca said. I thought I was stupid for falling for it. Knowing there are others, it helps. The pattern was undeniable. Victoria had been running the same scam for 7 years. Same pitch, same fake business, same promises, same offshore accounts. She was a professional con artist. Victoria's defense attorney tried to spin it as a business dispute. Ms. Torres invested in a business venture that failed. Business ventures fail all the time. That's not fraud. Catherine buried him. Your Honor, this isn't a failed business venture. Ms. Chen never had a business. She created false documents to convince the plaintiff to invest. She forged the plaintiff's signature on loan applications. She systematically transferred funds to offshore accounts. This isn't a business failure. This is a criminal enterprise. She presented the video of Victoria photographing my documents. She presented the handwriting analysis proving forgery. She presented the offshore account records. She presented testimony from 3 previous victims. The defense attorney tried to argue I'd known about the loans, that the signatures were mine. Catherine presented my testimony, my financial advisor's testimony, my handwriting expert's testimony. The plaintiff had no knowledge of these loans until she received collection notices. She never signed these documents. She never authorized these transfers. This is identity theft. This is fraud. This is forgery. And the evidence is overwhelming. The trial was scheduled for March 2016, but by February, Victoria's attorney was pushing for a settlement. She'll plead guilty to civil fraud, Catherine told me over the phone. She'll agree to pay full restitution plus $100,000 in damages, total $242,000. In exchange, you agree not to pursue criminal charges. No. Claire, that's a good offer. Getting a judgment is one thing. Collecting it is another. This guarantees you get paid. I don't care about the money. I want her in prison. The DA might not file charges. They might decide it's a civil matter. You said you'd recommend prosecution. I will, but I can't guarantee they'll listen. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No settlement. We go to trial, and you tell the DA that if they don't file criminal charges, I'm going to every news outlet in the city. I'm going to make this case so public that they'll have no choice. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. You're terrifying, you know that? I've been told. All right, we go to trial. The trial started on March 7th, 2016. The courtroom was packed. The Chen family filled 3 rows. Victoria sat at the defense table in a cream-colored suit, looking small and vulnerable. Her lawyer had clearly told her to play the sympathy card. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Catherine, wearing a black pantsuit and my grandmother's pearl earrings. The trial lasted 6 days. Catherine was surgical. She walked the jury through every crime. Day 1, the business fraud, how Victoria had pitched a fake business opportunity, how she'd created false documents, how she'd systematically stolen from the business account. Day 2, the forged loans, how Victoria had stolen my financial information, how she'd forged my signature, how she'd taken out $89,000 in loans in my name. Day 3, the offshore accounts, how Victoria had hidden the stolen money, how she'd spent it on luxury goods, how she'd never intended to pay it back. Day 4, the pattern, testimony from James, Sarah, and Rebecca, 3 victims, same methods spanning 7 years. Day 5, expert testimony, handwriting analysts, forensic accountants, financial advisors, all confirming that this was systematic, intentional fraud. Day 6, closing arguments. Victoria's attorney made his pitch. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a tragedy. A young woman made terrible business decisions. She panicked. She made desperate choices. But this isn't criminal. This is a failed entrepreneur who bit off more than she could chew. Ms. Torres is understandably upset about losing her investment, but business investments are risky. Sometimes they fail. That's not fraud. That's life. Catherine stood up for her closing. The defense would like you to believe this was a business failure. But let's look at the facts. Fact 1. The defendant created false business documents to induce the plaintiff to invest. Fact 2. The defendant broke into the plaintiff's home and stole her personal financial information. Fact 3. The defendant forged the plaintiff's signature on 3 separate loan applications. Fact 4. The defendant transferred stolen funds to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Fact 5. The defendant did the exact same thing to 3 other victims over a 7-year period. This isn't a business failure, ladies and gentlemen. This is a criminal enterprise. This is a woman who targets vulnerable people, gains their trust, and systematically steals from them. And she's been doing it for years. The evidence is overwhelming. The video, the bank records, the handwriting analysis, the testimony of multiple victims. All of it points to one conclusion. Victoria Chen is a con artist. She's a thief, and she needs to be held accountable. We're asking for full restitution of $142,000. We're asking for punitive damages of $300,000 to send a message that this behavior will not be tolerated. And we're asking that you find the defendant liable for fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Thank you. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. I sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, Catherine beside me, waiting. Marcus walked past once. He didn't look at me. Diane glared from across the hall. Robert looked like he'd aged 10 years. Victoria cried in her lawyer's arms. I felt nothing. At 4:47 p.m., the bailiff called us back. The jury had reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. Victoria was shaking. Her lawyer had his hand on her shoulder. The judge asked the foreman to read the verdict. In the matter of Torres Vari Chen, on the count of civil fraud, we find the defendant liable. Victoria's face crumpled. On the count of forgery, we find the defendant liable. She started crying. On the count of identity theft, we find the defendant liable. Her lawyer whispered something to her. She shook her head. The judge continued, what are the damages? Full restitution in the amount of $142,000. Punitive damages in the amount of $250,000. Plaintiff's legal fees in the amount of $97,000. Total judgment, $489,000. The courtroom erupted. The Chen family was shouting. Victoria was sobbing. Her lawyer was trying to calm her down. I sat perfectly still. Catherine leaned over. We won. I know. The judge banged his gavel. Order! Order in the court! The room quieted. Ms. Chen, the judge said, looking at Victoria, this court finds you liable for systematic fraud against the plaintiff and multiple other victims. The evidence presented was overwhelming. You are ordered to pay the plaintiff $489,000. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. Bailiff, we're adjourned. Victoria collapsed in her chair. The Chen family sat in stunned silence. I stood up, smoothed my jacket, and walked out. Catherine caught up with me in the hallway. That was beautiful, she said. Thank you. The DA is definitely filing charges. I spoke with them this morning. With this verdict, they have no choice. Good. The asset seizure will start immediately. I've already filed the paperwork. Her condo, her car, everything she owns, it's ours. How long until I see the money? 6 months, maybe a year. We have to liquidate the assets. But you'll get paid. I guarantee it. We shook hands. I walked out of the courthouse into the late afternoon sun. My phone was buzzing. Text after text from members of the Chen family. I deleted them without reading them. There was one from Marcus. I hope you're happy. You destroyed my family. I replied, your sister destroyed me first. I just made sure she faced consequences. Then I blocked his number. I stood on the courthouse steps looking out at the city. March 2016. I was 26 years old. In my first life at this age, I'd been drowning in debt. My lawsuit dropped, my marriage crumbling, my spirit broken. In this life, I was free. The asset seizure happened fast. Catherine was relentless. Within 2 weeks, Victoria's condo was listed for sale. Her Mercedes was auctioned, her jewelry, her designer clothes, her art collection, everything was liquidated. She moved back in with her parents. The criminal charges were filed in April. Wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, 3 counts each. Victoria's criminal defense attorney tried to argue that civil liability didn't prove criminal intent, but the evidence was overwhelming. Same evidence, higher stakes. The criminal trial was faster. The DA's office had Catherine's entire case file. They just had to present it. Victoria took a plea deal, 7 years in prison, full restitution to all victims, me, James, Sarah, and Rebecca. Total debt, $813,000. She'd spend the rest of her life paying it off. The sentencing was in July. Catherine called me with the news. She cried, Catherine said, begged for leniency, said she'd already lost everything. The judge didn't care. Good. The family was there. They're still claiming you're vindictive. Of course they are. Well, she's in prison now. They can't protect her anymore. I hung up and took a deep breath. It was over. Not just the case. The whole nightmare. I filed for divorce from Marcus the same day Victoria went to prison. He didn't contest it. The prenup made it simple. We split no assets. I walked away with nothing from the marriage except my freedom. Fine by me. I'd gotten everything I needed from the lawsuit. I moved on with my life. I used some of the settlement money to pay off the fraudulent loans Victoria had taken in my name. My credit score shot up. I invested the rest. Bitcoin was at $650 in July 2016. I bought $50,000 worth. It would hit $19,000 by December 2017. I went back to school for my PhD, something I'd always wanted but couldn't afford in my first life. I didn't date. I didn't socialize much. I just focused on building the life I'd been denied. I finished my PhD in 2019. Dissertation on health disparities in underserved communities. It was published. It was cited. It made a difference. I got a job at a research institute. Good salary, meaningful work, colleagues who respected me. I bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood. I adopted a dog named Justice. Catherine laughed when I told her the name. I lived simply. carefully, deliberately. Every choice was mine. Every dollar I earned was mine. No one could take it from me. No one could pressure me. No one could make me small. Victoria was released from prison in 2021 after serving 5 years. She tried to rebuild her life, but the judgments followed her everywhere. Wage garnishment, asset liens, destroyed credit. She got a job as a barista, lived in a studio apartment, drove a 15-year-old Honda. She posted on Facebook once, a long rant about how one mistake had ruined her life, how people were too quick to judge, how the justice system was broken. The comments were brutal. You committed systematic fraud against multiple people over 7 years. That's not one mistake. You stole your sister-in-law's dead grandmother's inheritance and then played victim. You got what you deserved. Justice isn't broken just because you finally faced consequences. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. The courts had spoken. In 2023, Victoria's other victims started filing lawsuits. News of her conviction had spread. People she'd scammed in college, people she'd scammed in her early 20s, people who'd been too ashamed to come forward. 5 more civil suits, all successful. Victoria's debt ballooned to over $1.2 million. She'd never pay it off. She'd die in debt, just like she'd intended for me. Poetic justice. I didn't follow her life after that. I didn't care. She was my past. I was living my present. At 35, 10 years after the trial, 23 years after my rebirth, I'd achieved everything I'd dreamed of. A successful career, financial stability, a home, peace. On my 35th birthday, I baked myself a cake. Chocolate, my favorite. I ate a slice on my back porch watching the sunset. Justice curled up at my feet. I didn't choke. I didn't die. I just enjoyed my cake. That evening, I received a letter. Return address, Rebecca Torres. I opened it curiously. Dear Claire, you don't know me well, but I wanted to write to thank you. When you sued Victoria, you gave the rest of us the courage to come forward. For years, I thought I was alone. I thought I was stupid for falling for her scam. I was too ashamed to tell anyone. But you weren't ashamed. You fought back. You demanded justice. And you won. Because of you, I got justice too. My lawsuit was successful. I recovered most of my losses. More than that, I recovered my self-respect. You showed all of us that we didn't have to stay silent, that we deserved better, that fighting back was possible. So, thank you. From the bottom of my heart. Rebecca, I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a drawer and smiled. I hadn't just gotten justice for myself. I'd gotten it for all of us. A week later, I received another letter. This one was from Victoria. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity won. It was long. Pages of apologies, explanations, justifications. She talked about family pressure to succeed, fear of failure, bad choices compounding. She said she was sorry. She said she'd changed. She said she hoped I could forgive her someday. I read it once. Then I burned it because sorry doesn't erase 13 years of suffering. Sorry doesn't erase the theft, the betrayal, the lies. Sorry doesn't give me back my grandmother's inheritance, the years I lost to debt, the marriage that crumbled. Sorry is just a word, and I didn't need her apology to be happy. I'd already won. The statute of limitations had reset with my rebirth. The courts had given me justice. Victoria had faced consequences. The family that protected her had learned they couldn't bully me into silence. And I was free. That was my victory, not her suffering, though I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good. Not her apologies, too little, too late. No, my victory was building a life where she didn't matter, where the Chen family didn't matter, where I was enough all by myself. At 40, I was happy. At 45, I was thriving. I'd never remarried. I'd had relationships, but none serious. I was content alone. I'd advanced in my career. I was now director of research at my institute. My work was making a real difference. I'd invested wisely. Bitcoin, stocks, real estate. I was financially comfortable, not wealthy, but secure. I volunteered at a women's shelter, helping victims of financial abuse. I taught them how to protect themselves, how to document, how to fight back. I shared my story, anonymously at first, then openly. The Benatis system works, I told them. But you have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to stand up and say, this matters. I matter. What happened to me was wrong. Some of them sued their abusers. Some of them won. Each victory felt like my own. On my 50th birthday, I hosted a small dinner party. Friends from work, women from the shelter. Catherine Morrison, who'd become a genuine friend over the years. We ate cake, we laughed, we told stories. Catherine raised her glass. To Claire, who taught us all that justice is possible if you're willing to fight for it. Everyone cheered. I smiled and thought about the girl I'd been at 22. Naive, trusting, vulnerable. She'd died in her first life, broken and alone. But in this life, she'd become someone stronger, someone who knew her worth, someone who refused to be silenced, someone who demanded justice, and got it. That night, after everyone left, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine. Justice was curled up. Beside me, old and gray now, but still loyal. I looked up at the stars and thought about Victoria. She'd be 59 now. Probably still working minimum wage, still drowning in debt, still paying for her crimes. I felt nothing. Not vindication, not satisfaction, just peace. Because here's what I'd learned. Revenge is about them. Justice is about you. Revenge is making them suffer. Justice is refusing to suffer anymore. Revenge is temporary satisfaction. Justice is permanent freedom. I'd chosen justice, and it had set me free. Not just from Victoria, not just from the Chen family, but from the belief that I had to accept my own destruction. From the idea that staying silent was noble. From the lie that forgiveness was mandatory. I'd said no. I'd fought back. I'd won. And that victory had given me something more valuable than money. It had given me myself. The knowledge that I mattered, that what happened to me mattered, that I deserved justice, and I had the right to demand it. That was the real gift of rebirth. Not a second chance at life, but a second chance at self-respect, and I'd taken it. I finished my wine, called justice inside, and locked the door behind me. Tomorrow I'd wake up in my own house, in my own bed, in my own life. A life I'd fought for, a life I'd earned, a life that was finally, completely, blessedly mine. And Victoria Chen? She was just someone I used to know. Someone who'd tried to destroy me and failed. Someone who'd learned too late that actions have consequences. Someone who no longer mattered. I went to bed that night and slept peacefully. No nightmares, no regrets, just peace. Because I'd done the impossible. I'd gone back in time, relived my trauma, documented my abuser's crimes, fought my way through a hostile family, won in court, sent her to prison, and built a life I was proud of. I'd won. Not because she suffered, but because I thrived, and that, I'd learned, was the best revenge of all.